She laughed. "You can't handle the truth." And in that moment, the entire air between us changed. Not because of the words alone, but because of the way she said them. Her eyes sharp, her tone almost playful, like this was all a joke to her. Then she reached into her bag, slow and deliberate, and pulled out divorce papers signed with my pen. My pen. That detail hit me harder than anything. It wasn't just that she had planned this, it was that she'd used the same pen I had signed our mortgage with, the same pen I used to write birthday cards, the same pen I'd used the night I scribbled down vows on a napkin, because I wanted them to feel raw and imperfect. Now that same ink was the weapon she used to gut the life we'd built together. I remember staring at those papers as if they were some foreign object, like maybe if I blinked long enough they'd vanish, or the edges would blur and I'd wake up from the bad dream. But no, the edges stayed sharp. The bold type of petition for dissolution stayed clear, and her signature looked almost smug in its flourish. And I couldn't stop asking myself one question. When did the shift happen? Was it a moment I could pinpoint the night we skipped dinner together? Because I stayed late at work? The fight over nothing that lasted 3 days too long? Or was it 1,000 tiny splinters that had been pressing in unnoticed, until suddenly they broke me open? I wanted to speak, to yell, to laugh, even. But what came out instead was silence. My body froze, my mind raced, but my mouth betrayed me. She filled the silence with more words, words that felt rehearsed, like she'd been waiting to unleash them. "I needed you to see this for yourself. I needed you to know I wasn't bluffing. You think you're the only one who can play calm and calculated. Well, now you're holding proof that I've been 2 steps ahead all along." It was strange because in that moment, part of me admired her. Not the betrayal, not the cruel twist of using my pen, but the sheer audacity of it all. The clarity, the boldness, and that scared me more than anything. Admiring the person who was tearing my life in two. I tried to collect myself, to gather any dignity left hanging around me. "So that's it?" I asked finally, my voice low but steady. She smirked, like she was enjoying how late I was to the game. "That's it. And before you ask, no, this isn't negotiable. I don't want to sit through therapy sessions, pretending to fix something that's been dead longer than you want to admit. I don't want your promises. I don't want your grand gestures. I want out." My mind started spinning down a rabbit hole of memories. The first time we kissed in the rain, her hair plastered to her cheeks, and me laughing because it felt like some cliché movie scene. The nights we stayed up till 3 in the morning dreaming about trips we never took. The way she looked on our wedding day, so sure of me, of us. And then the flashes of the darker moments. Her slamming the door, me sleeping on the couch, us sitting side by side at dinner with more silence than words. It was like my brain couldn't decide which reel to play, the highlight reel or the horror show. Both were true. But here's the thing no one tells you. The moment you see divorce papers with your name on them, reality stops being a spectrum of memories, and starts being a cliff you've just been pushed off. And the fall is long, and the landing is nowhere in sight. I asked her one more thing, though maybe I already knew the answer. "Why now?" She tilted her head like she couldn't believe I was still catching up. "Because now I finally realized, I don't owe you my silence anymore. I don't owe you my patience. And you," she paused, her eyes drilling into mine. "You don't deserve my loyalty when you gave up on earning it years ago." That line cut deep, because as much as I wanted to reject it, part of me wondered if she was right. Had I grown complacent? Had I stopped seeing her as someone to fight for? Someone to impress? I thought love meant stability, but maybe to her it looked like stagnation. The night ended with me holding those papers, the pen that had betrayed me still lying on the table between us. She walked out without slamming the door, without theatrics. Just a quiet exit, like a curtain closing on an act that had run too long. But here's where the story doesn't end, where the real conversation begins. Because if you've ever been blindsided like that, you know the aftermath is a storm. You question everything, your worth, your memories, your ability to ever trust again. You find yourself replaying every conversation, every glance, searching for clues you missed. And you start wondering about the truth she claimed I couldn't handle. What truth was she talking about? Just that she wanted out? Or something deeper, something darker that hadn't yet surfaced? In the days that followed, I found myself digging through her words, through her silences, through her behavior over the last year, and I started finding threads I hadn't pulled at before. Text messages that felt a little too casual, Receipts that didn't match the stories. A hotel keycard tucked in the pocket of a jacket she hadn't worn in months. That's when I realized the divorce papers weren't the whole truth. They were the distraction, the performance. The truth was something else entirely, and maybe I wasn't ready to know it yet, but I couldn't let it go. Because once someone tells you, you can't handle the truth, every nerve in your body starts demanding to prove them wrong, and maybe that's what she wanted, to bait me into unraveling everything, to watch me fall apart piece by piece. Or maybe she underestimated me. Maybe I could handle it. Maybe the truth wasn't just hers to tell. And so I started digging. I didn't sleep that night. The papers sat on the table like a living thing, taunting me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hand sliding them out of her bag with that smirk. Every time I reached for my phone, I felt the weight of that pen in my pocket, the ink that was supposed to bind our lives now being used to sever them. I got up, paced, sat back down. I read the same line on the first page over and over. Irreconcilable differences, like those words held some secret code I hadn't cracked. What differences? Was it me? Her? Someone else? By dawn I knew I wasn't going to accept silence as my answer. If she said I couldn't handle the truth, then I needed to prove I could. I needed to know what she thought I couldn't face. And so, like any man who's been broken but not yet beaten, I started digging. The first thing I did was retrace her past few months in my mind. The trips she said were work conferences, the dinners she skipped, the late-night showers where she came out smelling of perfume. I hadn't bought her. At the time I chalked it up to stress, to distance, to the natural ebb and flow of marriage. But hindsight has a cruel way of turning those blind spots into neon signs. I checked our joint bank account. That's where I found the first thread. 2 charges from a hotel downtown, expensive ones, the kind we never stayed at even for anniversary. The dates didn't match any trips I remembered. My chest tightened as I stared at the line items, my coffee going cold in my hand. She hadn't even tried to hide it. Or maybe she thought I'd never. That's when I remembered the jacket. The one I'd found with the key card in the pocket. I dug it back out, slipped the card between my fingers, and felt the sting of realization hit. She had checked in under her name. She didn't care if there was a trail, and that arrogance told me something. She wasn't afraid of being found out, which meant, maybe, she wanted me to find out. So I went to the hotel. The woman at the desk gave me the polite smile of someone trained not to ask questions, but when I slid the key card forward and said, "Can you just tell me if this was checked out last month?" Her smile faltered. She tapped at her computer, glanced at me, then at the screen again. "Yes," she said finally. "Room 123. Was she alone?" I asked. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. The woman hesitated. "I'm not supposed to disclose guest information." But then she looked at me a little longer, and maybe she saw something in my face, the kind of desperation you can't fake. She lowered her voice. She wasn't alone. I left before I could ask more. I didn't want the name. Not yet. Because once you hear the name, it's real. Once you see the face, there's no going back. That night, I confronted her. Not with anger, not with shouting, just a quiet question. Who was he? Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. She blinked. Once, twice, then set it down carefully on the plate. For the first time in weeks, she looked nervous. "What are you talking about?" she said, but her voice cracked. "The hotel," I said. "The receipts. The key card. I know you weren't alone." Silence stretched between us, long and suffocating. Then she did something I didn't expect. She laughed. A hollow, bitter laugh that sent a chill through me. "So you finally figured it out," she said. "I was wondering how long it would take." And just like that, the truth began to unravel. She admitted it wasn't new, that it had been going on for months, that he made her feel alive in ways I apparently no longer could. And then she twisted the knife deeper. "It's not just about him. It's about me, realizing I don't need to settle for a man who stopped seeing me years ago." I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to say I still saw her, that I still loved her, that I hadn't given up. But as the words formed on my tongue, they sounded weak, like excuses, and she was already shaking her head, already done with this conversation. "You always thought you were the one holding the power," she said. "But look at you now. You're the one scrambling for answers. I already made peace with the truth. "You're just catching up." That line stuck with me. Because she was right. I was scrambling. And yet something inside me shifted in that moment. If she thought I couldn't handle the truth, she was wrong. I wasn't going to crumble. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to take back control. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, lawyers, and long nights of thinking about how easily our lives could be split in two. She wanted half of everything. Half the house, half the savings, half the life we'd built. And maybe she thought I'd just roll over, sign whatever she put in front of me. But what she didn't count on was that I wasn't as blind as I'd been before. See, I started documenting every receipt, every late-night absence, every message she left open on her laptop by mistake. I didn't hack. I didn't snoop. I just watched, patiently. And what I found was enough to paint a picture. Even her lawyer couldn't whitewash. She had been funneling money into a separate account. Money from our joint savings, disguised as business expense. And she had been careless enough to leave the paper trail. When the day came to sit across from each other in a sterile mediation room, her confidence faltered. My lawyer slid the documents across the table. Her little side account, laid bare in black and white. Her eyes widened, just slightly. But I caught it. She knew she was caught. "You said I couldn't handle the truth," I told her quietly across the table. Turns out the truth couldn't handle me. She didn't laugh this time. She didn't smirk. She just stared, the color draining from her face as her lawyer whispered frantically in her ear. And that was the moment I knew I'd won something. Not her, not our marriage, not even the years we lost, but I'd won back myself, my dignity, my strength, the part of me she thought she had broken. The divorce went through, cleaner than she expected. She didn't get half. She didn't get the house. She walked away with far less than she thought she was entitled to, and maybe less than she deserved. But she walked away, and that was enough for me. In the months since, I've rebuilt piece by piece. Some nights I still wake up reaching for her side of the bed, forgetting for a split second that she's gone. Some mornings the silence of the house feels too heavy. But then I remember silence is better than lies. Silence is better than betrayal, dressed up as love. And here's the strange part. I don't hate her. I thought I would. But I don't. I think hate would have kept me tied to her in a way I refuse to be. What I feel now is clarity. A sharp, painful clarity. Yes, but clarity all the same. She gave me the papers signed with my pen. She thought that would break me. Instead, it forced me to pick up a new pen. One that writes my story, not hers. So when people ask me now what happened, I just smile and say she thought I couldn't handle the truth. Turns out the truth was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I mean it. Because the truth didn't end me. It freed me.